OK. Bonjour et merci de vous être joint à nous aujourd'hui. Today, we will hear from Canada's Chief Public Health Officer, Dr. Theresa Tam, the Deputy Chief Public Health Officer, Dr. Howard New, by video link, the Minister of Finance, Bill Morneau, also by video link, the Minister of Small Business, Export Promotion and International Trade, Mary Ng, the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, Navdeep Bains, and Minister of Public Services and Procurement, Anita Anand. We are going to end this press conference at 1 p.m. sharp, indeed a few moments before 1 p.m., in order to observe a minute of silence to honor and mourn the victims of the Nova Scotia shooting. Okay, Dr. Tam, please.
Hello, everyone, and bonjour à toutes et à tous. I'll start, as usual, with the latest numbers on COVID-19 in Canada. There are now 42,750 confirmed cases, including 2,179 deaths. To date, labs across Canada have tested over 643,000 people, with over 6.5% of these testing positive. As outbreaks in long-term care homes continue to define one of our biggest struggles and deepest heartaches with COVID-19, I want to highlight the work of those who have endured and those who have rushed in to help. I'd like to do this in a personal story shared with one of my staff. This is the story of Michelle, a nurse in Nova Scotia, who was recently reassigned to care for COVID-19 patients at a nursing home. To minimize any risk to her family, she has decided to live in a hotel for the duration of her work assignment. Sensing her unease, her 3 children wanted to give her a boost and let her know they understood. So in a poem, they, and with a little help from Dad, wrote, "My mom is a hero, so make no mistake. If the world ever needs her, she'll do whatever it takes. We know that she worries. Please don't, we're fine. We know the world needs a hero, so it can borrow mine." Healthcare workers across Canada are going the extra mile every day to care for our most vulnerable. We cannot let their sacrifice or the personal risks they are taking to be in vain. However, these weeks have been hard on everyone, whether at home or on our supply roads, in grocery stores, pharmacies, or on the front lines of healthcare. No one can measure one person's struggle against another. There is always more to the story. If you are struggling at home with anxiety, fear, violence, problematic substance use, or other concerns, there's help. You can find a full range of supports through our new Wellness Together Canada portal that is dedicated to providing resources for mental wellness. You can access the portal through canada.ca/coronavirus website or the Canada COVID-19 app. I'll end by paraphrasing Michelle herself. To all of our essential service heroes out there, stay safe. To everyone else, please stay home and staying within your bubble. Give a hug to your loved ones. Hug it out for our heroes and for all those who are isolated while they cannot hug their own. Stay home. Save lives, Canada. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Dr. Tam, and that was a very touching story. Thank you very much, Michelle, and thank you very much, especially Michelle's 3 children. You guys are right, your mother is a hero, and thank you for giving her up and lending her to other people for a while. Okay, maintenant je donne la parole à Dr. Howard New. Dr. New, s'il vous plaît.
Merci. Bonjour. Tout d'abord, voici les derniers chiffres sur la COVID-19 au Canada. Nous comptons maintenant 42 754 confirmés, donc 2 179 décès. À ce jour, les laboratoires partout au Canada ont réalisé des tests de dépistage de plus de 643 000 personnes, parmi lesquelles plus de 6,5% ont obtenu un résultat positif. Comme les éclosions dans les établissements de soins de longue durée comptent parmi nos plus grandes luttes et nos plus grands chagrins liés à la COVID-19, on tient à souligner les efforts de ceux qui travaillent en première ligne et de ceux qui se sont empressés à leur venir en aide. Pour ce faire, j'aimerais vous raconter une expérience personnelle partagée par un des membres de notre personnel. C'est l'histoire de Michelle, infirmière en Nouvelle-Écosse, qui a récemment été réaffectée dans une maison de soins infirmiers pour soigner des patients atteints de la COVID-19. Pour éviter de mettre les membres de sa famille à risque, elle a décidé de demeurer dans un hôtel pendant son affectation professionnelle. Sentant son malaise, ses 3 enfants ont voulu lui remonter le moral et lui ont dit qu'ils comprenaient la situation. Ils ont donc écrit un poème avec un peu d'aide de leur papa. Ma mère est une héroïne, ni plus ni moins. Si on a besoin d'elle, rien ne l'empêchera de faire du bien. Si on sait qu'elle s'inquiète, mais maman, ici tout va bien. Le monde a besoin de héros, on comprend, elle s'en vient. Chaque jour, les travailleurs de la santé partout au Canada se dépassent pour prodiguer les soins aux plus vulnérables d'entre nous. Nous ne pouvons pas accepter que leur sacrifice ou que les risques qu'ils prennent soient en vain. Cependant, les dernières semaines nous ont tous mis à l'épreuve, que ce soit à la maison ou sur nos lignes de ravitaillement, dans les épiceries, les pharmacies ou dans les services de soins de santé de première ligne. Personne ne peut comparer les défis des uns à ceux des autres. Nous ne connaissons jamais toute l'histoire. Si vous éprouvez de la difficulté à la maison, êtes aux prises avec de l'anxiété, de la peur, de la violence, une consommation problématique de substances ou toute autre préoccupation, de l'aide existe. Vous pouvez trouver toute une gamme de services de soutien sur notre tout nouveau portail Espace Mieux-être Canada, voué à offrir des ressources pour la santé mentale. Le portail est accessible à partir du site web canada.ca/le coronavirus ou de l'application Canada COVID-19. Je termine en paraphrasant Michel. À tous nos héros des services essentiels, protégez-vous. À tous les autres, je vous en prie, restez à la maison. Et tout en restant dans votre bulle, serrez vos êtres chers dans vos bras. Serrez-les contre vous pour nos héros et pour tous ceux qui sont isolés, qui ne peuvent serrer les leurs. Restez à la maison, sauvez des vies, Canada. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Dr. New. And now we'll hear from our Minister of Finance, Bill Morneau. Bill, please.
Well, thanks, Christia, and good afternoon. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about small businesses, and I know my colleague Mary Ng will be talking about the same subject after me. We know that so many small businesses have been hit so hard during the course of this COVID-19 crisis. And so what we want to talk about today is a program that will help them with their rent payments. For the last week or so, we've been working together with provincial and territorial partners to bring significant relief to struggling small businesses. And I'm pleased to say that we now have agreements in principle with all of the territories and provinces to offer the Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program. Through the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, we'll offer qualifying commercial property owners forgivable loans that will cover 50% of impacted tenants' rent, in exchange for them providing a rent reduction of at least 75% and agreeing to a moratorium on evictions. And we know that this is working together. We all have to do our part in supporting those who are facing economic hardship. The Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program will be available for qualifying commercial property owners with tenants that pay less than $50,000 a month in rent and that have experienced at least a 70% decrease in their revenues. Eligible tenants will include small businesses, nonprofit, and charitable organizations. Eligible landlords who've already stepped up and offered 75% or more reductions for April or May, or who would like to retroactively do so, can apply. We expect that this new benefit will be available starting in mid-May. With the first month of it around the corner, we're asking that landlords try to be flexible as they work with their tenants in the coming days. Nous avons maintenant un accord de principe avec toutes les provinces et territoires pour offrir l'aide d'urgence aux loyers commerciaux du Canada afin d'aider les petites entreprises canadiennes touchées par la crise. Par l'entremise de la Société canadienne d'hypothèques et de logement, nous offrirons aux propriétaires d'immeubles commerciaux admissibles des prêts remboursables qui couvrent 50% du loyer des locataires touchés en échange d'une réduction de leur loyer d'au moins 75% et que ces propriétaires acceptent une moratoire sur les expulsions. L'aide d'urgence au Canada pour les loyers commerciaux sera offerte aux propriétaires d'immeubles commerciaux dont les locataires payent moins de 50 000 $ de loyer par mois et qui ont connu une baisse d'au moins 70% de leurs revenus. Les locataires admissibles comprennent les petites entreprises, les organismes à but non lucratif et du secteur de la bienfaisance. Les propriétaires qui ont déjà offert du soutien à leurs locataires, soit 75% ou plus de réduction pour avril ou mai, peuvent également présenter une demande. Nous prévoyons que le nouvel programme sera disponible à partir de la mi-mai. For significantly affected small businesses, this support's on top of the interest-free Canada Emergency Business Account loans with forgivable portions of up to 25%. It's on top of also the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy benefit. And of course, it's in addition to the deferral of income taxes, GST, HST payments, and customs duties. Finally, we're also providing significant credit support through the Business Development Bank and Export Development Bank of Canada, and for people, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit for those of you who are off from work or on furlough. Our response plan, Canada's COVID-19 Economic Response Plan, is among the most ambitious and generous among G7 countries because we believe that by taking action now, we will be more prepared to get out of this challenge when we get through it. So thank you very much. Thanks, Christia.
Okay, thank you very much, Bill. Now we will hear from our Minister of Small Business, Export Promotion and International Trade, Mary Ng. Mary, please.
Thank you so much, Christian. Thank you, Bill. Bonjour tout le monde. And to all of the Canadian small business owners, entrepreneurs, and sole proprietors and communities across the country, more help is on the way. You've just heard that from the Finance Minister. We know that in this difficult time, many of you are struggling to keep those lights on. And you're making incredible sacrifices to help Canadians stay safe by flattening the curve and in many cases, temporarily closing your doors down. And while we've seen a severe downturn in businesses or you've had to close your doors to COVID-19, it doesn't mean that your commercial rents payments have had to stop. We've put help out there to help with your expenses by deferring customs duties and tax payments, creating a 75% wage subsidy and a variety of lending supports. But we've certainly heard loud and clear from small business owners that you need help with your rent. And today is that relief. And as you've heard, we're partnering with the provinces and territories for businesses who are experiencing hardship as a result of their rent payments for April, May, and June. And under these rent agreements, we are going to be able to provide forgivable loans to incentivize commercial property owners to help their small business tenants with rent by at least 75% and to refrain from evictions. Il s'agit de soutenir les petites entreprises et les entrepreneurs qui sont le plus durement touchés par cette crise et qui ont le plus besoin de notre aide. It will mean that family restaurant in the neighborhood who's made the tough decision to close their doors can now be helped with their rent payment. It also means that local furniture store that usually relies on Main Street foot traffic can stay afloat to cover the costs of their warehouse space. Or that self-employed beauty salon owner who can't take on clients right now, that she's going to be able to keep up with her rent until it's safe to open her doors again. Our work is far from over, and we're going to keep listening, we're going to keep acting, and we'll keep supporting you every step of the way through this crisis. And I want to thank Canadian small business owners for your resilience during this period. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Mary. Now we will hear from the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, Navdeep Bains. Nav, please.
Thank you very much, Christia, and good afternoon, everyone. Je suis heureux d'être ici aujourd'hui pour faire une mise à jour sur la mobilisation du secteur industriel pour lutter contre la COVID-19. Our approach has been the same from the start. Companies reach out to us online through our portal, nearly 6,000 since the start a month ago, and we look at these offers against the needs of Canadians. When there's a promising match, we sign a letter of intent. Then we work with the company to support retooling, and often this means bringing companies together in new partnerships and supply chains. Finally, we finish by signing a contract for purchase. So I'll start with some progress on letters of intent for medical gowns. We facilitated the transformation of construction house wrap from inter-tap polymer and airbag materials from Autoliv into fabrics that meet the strict requirements necessary to use in the manufacturing of medical-grade gowns. By connecting these two firms with Canadian apparel manufacturers from across the country, they can now sew medical gowns with this new made-in-Canada fabric, effectively bypassing fabric shortages with an entirely new supply chain. This has enabled us to move forward from letters of intent to contracts with Mustang Survival, George Corey, Rudel, and Yoga Jeans. These companies join the ranks of Stanfield, Calco Group, and Canada Goose as Canadian apparel companies stepping up to provide critical medical gowns. In total, contracts with these 7 companies have resulted in more than 18 million gowns, with deliveries starting this week. I'll share one more example of how these new partnerships in Canadian industry have helped us in the fight against COVID-19. Luminultra, a producer of testing reagents in New Brunswick, was in short supply of chemicals for production. Having reached out to us through that portal that I mentioned earlier, we connected Luminultra to chemical supplies in Canada so they could keep on producing reagents critical to testing. Now let me move on to retooling efforts on face shields and masks. Canadian manufacturers have stepped up in difficult times to retool in the fight against COVID-19. And many of them are from an automotive sector, a sector that I'm very familiar with. I started my career in that sector. And we're working on contracts with more than a dozen companies that will deliver millions of face shields, including the likes of Windsor Mold, Dynaplast, and Inksmith. And this allows us to meet current requests from provinces and territories with Canadian supplies. We've also signed a letter of intent with General Motors, and they're working to retool its Oshawa assembly plant to help with the mass production here in Canada, and we're assisting them in this process. Bravo à toutes les entreprises qui se sont réorganisées pour nous aider à améliorer notre chaîne d'approvisionnement. And together, we're rising to the challenge. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, thank you, Nav. And now we'll hear from the Minister of Public Service and Procurement, Anita Anand. Anita, please.
Merci beaucoup, Christia, et bonjour tout le monde. Before I begin, let me say that as someone born and raised in Nova Scotia, my heart goes out to everyone who lost loved ones and friends this past weekend. This tragedy comes as we work to contain COVID-19, making it ever so difficult to grieve together. From spending the first 18 years of my life in Nova Scotia, I know that Nova Scotians are a very closely knit group. In these tragic times, know that I and all of Canada stands with you. Pendant que nous continuons à lutter contre la propagation de la COVID-19, mon ministère continue de faire des achats proactifs et agressifs d'équipements de protection individuelle et les fournitures médicales qui nous aideront à traverser cette pandémie. Today, I will be addressing international procurements, domestic production, and I will provide an update on our procurements. Given the intense global demand for equipment and supplies, we are facing many challenges. Much of the world's supply is manufactured in China, and moving materials out of that country is highly complex. we have experienced challenges, as the Prime Minister discussed earlier this week. I want to reassure Canadians that we continue to adjust and refine our logistical and diplomatic approaches on the ground, not just in response to supply chain challenges, but in anticipation of these challenges. The aggressive approach that we are taking to expeditiously bring home supplies means that we are building in contingencies, overbuying in some cases, and implementing rigorous product testing. Progress is being made. We have received 6 plane loads carrying supplies from China since last Friday alone, and over 10 carriers have brought goods back to Canada overall from China. They have helped to carry millions more N95 respirators and surgical masks into Canada that are now in the Public Health Agency for testing. I want to thank Air Canada and Cargojet for continuing to step up and deliver. Last weekend, we also received an international shipment of an important base chemical needed for producing reagent, as my colleague Minister Baines mentioned, at Lumen Ultra in New Brunswick, which will allow for more COVID-19 testing. The company is now gearing up to deliver reagent for up to 500,000 tests on a weekly basis. Les produits importés sont soumis à des tests rigoureux tant à la source qu'au Canada, où ils sont vérifiés par l'Agence de la santé publique du Canada. Les problèmes de qualité, bien qu'ils ne soient pas souhaitables, n'ont rien d'étonnant compte tenu de l'augmentation de la demande mondiale pour ces produits. Supplies are not only coming from abroad. Domestic production is ramping up and Canadian companies are delivering. I am pleased to announce with my colleague Minister Baines that this week we have signed contracts with 3 more Canadian companies, including Jacobs and Thompson out of Toronto, Windsor Mold Group out of Windsor, Ontario, to produce a total of 16 million medical face shields. The third company, Canadian Shield out of Kitchener, has moved from 3D printing to laser cutting technology to produce masks that can be easily sanitized for reuse. These are great examples of Canadian ingenuity and innovation. Je suis inspirée par la façon dont ces entreprises et bien d'autres ont relevé le défi et je suis fière de dire que d'autres entreprises canadiennes continuent de se joindre à elles. While the data may appear promising in some parts of the country, models suggest that there may be future outbreaks even after we get through this first peak. In terms of our procurements, this possibility means that we are still preparing for all eventualities. In light of this reality, I am pleased to announce that Stryker, a company headquartered in Waterdown and with production based in Quebec City, will provide us with 82 sterilization units that have been approved by Health Canada. These machines allow for the sterilization and reuse of equipment like N95 respirators, extending the life cycle of this important piece of equipment in healthcare facilities across the country. Je suis heureuse d'annoncer que Stryker, une entreprise dont le siège social est situé à Waterdown et dont la production se fait à Québec, nous fournira 82 unités de stérilisation qui ont été approuvées par Santé Canada. Ces appareils permettent la stérilisation et la réutilisation de l'équipement, comme les respirateurs N95. Ainsi, les établissements de soins de santé de tout le pays pourront utiliser cet équipement important plus longtemps. Nous avons également signé des contrats afin de répondre à un besoin éventuel pour au plus 10 unités de santé mobiles. Ces unités qui sont conçues expressément pour prodiguer des soins respirateurs permettront aux autorités de santé locales de prendre en charge les afflux de patients au besoin. While we certainly hope the surge capacity will not be needed, we are taking every precaution to keep Canadians safe. The COVID-19 situation is very worrying and stressful, and Canadians want to know what we are doing to protect them. We are taking new steps to be as transparent as possible and to keep Canadians up to date on our work. Today, we are launching an online report detailing the progress that we are making on procuring key COVID-19 supplies. This running inventory will be updated weekly and gives information on key supplies that have been ordered and received. Of course, these numbers only tell part of the story, as our provinces, territories, and healthcare centers are also procuring supplies on their own. We are dealing with massive quantities of goods. Behind those numbers is an army of hard-working Canadians working here and overseas, doing all they can to deliver these goods. Je tiens à les remercier personnellement pour leur travail extraordinaire. I want to personally thank them for their extraordinary efforts. It is full steam ahead as we work to secure the supplies that
à CMHC pour assurer qu'ils vont être payés 75%. Donc, on va avoir plus de détails sur le site web dans les prochaines heures et ça va aider les gens d'avoir un accord entre les deux parties.
En suivi, Louis Samuel.
Merci. Le premier ministre a indiqué plutôt avoir bientôt de nouvelles informations pour un programme d'aide pour les entreprises plus grandes. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous en dire plus? Est-ce que c'est un programme d'aide pour le loyer aux entreprises plus grandes?
Merci. Nous savons qu'il y a aussi des défis pour les grandes entreprises. Nous avons déjà fait des choses. La subvention salariale est très importante pour les grandes entreprises, bien sûr, mais aussi nous savons que pour eux, comme pour les autres entreprises qui sont plus petites, le niveau de crédit est très important. C'est pour ça que nous sommes en train de considérer comment nous pouvons avoir une assurance qu'il y a assez de crédit pour eux, et de cette façon, ils vont avoir un pont d'ici à les jours quand nous sommes, heureusement, j'espère, avec une meilleure situation. Donc ça, c'est le but. Dans les prochains jours, on va avoir plus à communiquer.
Merci, Monsieur le Ministre. Opérateur, prochaine question, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you. Merci. Our next question, notre prochaine question, is from Laura Osmond with the Canadian Press. Please go ahead. À vous la parole.
Thank you. Minister Freeland, you said it feels like a very, very long time ago that May would be a time when the federal government would be reopening discussions about health transfers with the provinces. Are those discussions still expected to happen next month, and how has this pandemic informed those discussions?
Thanks for the question, Laura. And as we've heard from the Prime Minister this afternoon, and just over an hour, the Prime Minister will have a First Ministers meeting that I will attend. I think that one of the chief subjects will be a discussion around principles and standards across the country for reopening the economy. I am certain we will also continue to discuss the healthcare response to the coronavirus and the costs of that response. So that is an ongoing discussion with the provinces. It includes, but is not limited to, the procurement work and the Made in Canada work we've heard about from Anita and Nav just now. It also includes some extraordinary efforts by the Canadian Armed Forces that we're seeing in Ontario and Quebec. The Prime Minister said something very important at the beginning of the coronavirus crisis. which is that we were not going to quibble about federal and provincial responsibilities. We were not going to be limited in our response over questions over who would be paying the bill when it came to providing urgent health care to Canadians. And that is our approach right now to this urgent situation. In terms of the longer term, I think that we are still in a situation where our house is on fire and all of us need to be really, really focused on putting the fire out. But there for sure are some longer term lessons that I think we are all learning right now. Very central in my mind, and I know that of many, many Canadians, is that collectively we need to do a much better job of caring for our elders.
Laura, follow-up?
Thank you. And for Minister Morneau, we're hearing from some small business federations who are concerned that the program to subsidize rents for small businesses is voluntary on the part of the landlord. And so even if a small business feels they really need the help, their landlord may not want to play ball, so to speak. So what do you say to them?
Well, let me start by saying we need to understand that many of those small businesses are going through enormous challenges. The landlords also have been going through challenges because in many cases businesses have not been able to pay. So we think that this provides a very good incentive for both parties. For the small business, they're going to have a 75% reduction in their rent, so they'll be paying 25%. For the landlord, they're going to have a guarantee of 75% of their rent, because 25% will be paid for by the small business and 50% in a forgivable loan by the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. So I think there's a very good incentive on both sides, and we're looking forward to this being a successful program, working together, of course, with the provinces and ensuring that people work together to get to the right outcome.
Thank you, Minister. Operator, next question, please.
Thank you. Merci. Our next question, notre prochaine question is from Catherine Lévesque with la Presse canadienne. Please go ahead. Your line is now open.
Oui, bonjour à tous. Mes questions sont aussi au ministre Morneau et sentez-vous à l'aise de répondre en anglais si vous voulez. C'est juste qu'on est tous connectés en ce moment. On essaie de comprendre comment ce programme pour les loyers va fonctionner. Donc, je me demandais si vous pouviez nous expliquer peut-être étape par étape. Si je suis, par exemple, là, un propriétaire d'un édifice avec des petites entreprises, comment est-ce que ça va fonctionner concrètement et d'où l'argent va provenir?
Donc, vous avez demandé en anglais, c'est plus facile pour moi. What we expect is that the tenant and the landlord will come to an agreement that the tenant will get a 75% reduction in their rent. And the landlord, by allowing that, will be able to get a loan from the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. That loan will be forgiven. It's for 50% of the total rent. That will be forgiven when they show that they've given that reduction to the small business, to the tenant. So that's the way that it's intended to work. It's administered through the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, through our mortgage system. And we know that that will enable the landlord to have confidence that in their situation they'll get 75% of the rent paid, and the small business to know that they're going to get a 75% reduction. The federal government will be picking up the forgivable loan, so 50% of the cost, and then what will happen is from that loan, the provinces will be paying 25% of the overall cost. So that's the approach. That's how it will work. And we're looking forward to seeing a very positive situation for tenants and also for landlords who can now have more confidence that their tenants will be able to stay in the property and bridge the time through this COVID-19 crisis, so they'll be able to get back to business when we're through it.
Catherine, on suivi?
Merci beaucoup. C'est beaucoup plus clair, je pense, pour tout le monde qui est sur la ligne. Ma prochaine question est pour Madame Freeland. Je ne sais pas si vous avez des détails là-dessus. Monsieur Trudeau a laissé entendre tout à l'heure que le ministre de la Sécurité publique allait envoyer des militaires là au Québec et en Ontario. Je me demandais, est-ce qu'on peut avoir plus de détails sur combien de personnes seront envoyées? Est-ce qu'on parle de 1000 personnes par province? Et si oui, quand peut-on s'attendre à les voir dans les CHSLD de ces deux provinces?
Je m'excuse, Catherine, mais je ne peux pas partager les chiffres précis. J'ai discuté cet enjeu ce matin avec le ministre Hart-Sargeant et le ministre Sargeant, le ministre Blair sont très engagés en étroite collaboration avec le Québec. On organisait les précis chiffres, les précises équipes, les précis endroits où les forces armées canadiennes seront envoyées. Nous comprenons le besoin que Québec a et que l'Ontario a, mais c'est nécessaire d'avoir une bonne organisation. On doit comprendre que on a besoin des personnels avec une formation médicale. Alors, ça prendra un peu de temps, pas beaucoup de temps. On comprend aussi que chaque heure est une heure très importante pour la vie des gens, mais ça prendra un peu de temps pour préciser exactement qui sera envoyé et où les gens seront envoyés. Mais je veux assurer les gens du Québec et de l'Ontario qu'on comprend absolument que c'est une situation très grave et le Canada sera là pour aider les Québécois et les Québécoises et les Ontariens et Ontariennes.
Merci, Madame la Ministre. We'll turn to the room. Julie.
Hi, Julie Van Dusen. The question for CBC, the question is for Mr. Morneau. I think everyone understands the need to help Canadians in this crisis, but I'm wondering if there is a limit to how much you can or will spend. At some point, you just hit a wall. For example, if we're in the pandemic this time next year, can you continue to spend at this rate?
Well, thanks, Julie. I think the way to think about the challenge we're facing is that we need to have an economy when we get through this crisis. So we are supporting individuals, we're supporting businesses to get through this time so that we'll actually have the ability to get people back to work rapidly, that they'll still be connected with their employer, that those businesses will still be able to function, will be able to get back up and running. So we think that the significant investments that the Canadian government has made in supporting people, in supporting businesses, will prepare us better at the outcome to have a stronger economy. We think it would be imprudent of us to not support people now and leave ourselves with a bigger challenge after. So that is our frame of reference in everything that we're doing. Of course, we're trying to make sure that the measures we take are creating the right incentives, that are creating the right length of time for the bridge that we need. And that's what we need to do with every program, to make sure that they're cost effective and the right value. But make no mistake, we think the most important thing is to ensure that we have an economy coming out of this, that we have great jobs, that we have strong businesses, that we have not-for-profits that can continue to help people in the service that they've been providing for years. And the only way we can do that is providing measures like the one today that allows small businesses to get through this time while not having to pay for their entire rent if they have no revenues. That we see as critical to have an economy that will function afterwards.
So if Canada's credit rating goes down, what will that mean for how much it'll cost to service all the debt that we're piling up and to the value of the loonie?
Again, I think the way to think about this is the most important thing to our ability to be fiscally satisfactory and successful is that we have a strong economy coming out of this. So that is actually what's going to be the foundation that will allow us to pay down debts, that will allow us to continue supporting Canadians, and that will allow us to compare favorably against other countries in the world. So that is the frame that we've taken. You've seen, I think, that Canada is really a leader among other countries in supporting individuals and supporting businesses, and we think that's the right thing to do to get us through this.
Ian Wood, CTV News. Minister Morneau, I just want to pick up on that. This new plan, like many of the other personal and business emergency plans put in place, is set to go through June. what's the plan after that? Because we're told we're not out of the woods yet. So are these going to be extended into the summer, or are people on their own come July 1st or whenever these programs end?
I think what you've seen in all of the measures that we've taken is that we've taken measures that we think are appropriate for the information we have right now. So this measure is for the months of rent for April, May, and June. We believe we have information to make decisions based on what we think is happening in April, May, and June. We took a similar approach in providing the emergency response benefit, which goes for 16 weeks, and the wage subsidy, which goes for 12 weeks. So as we have information, we're taking decisions. We think it's appropriate that we take those decisions and reconsider them as we have more information. So as of now, we believe that this is the appropriate duration for this program. We believe it provides very strong support for small businesses, a 75% reduction in their rent, and strong support for landlords who now have a sense of 75% of the rent will be paid, giving them the ability to pay their mortgages to keep those properties functional. So we'll continue to consider the information that comes in and, of course, work with all of our partners to make sure that we're providing that right bridge to get through this.
My second question for Minister Freeland and Dr. Tam. Are you concerned about the patchwork approach to loosening restrictions? Saskatchewan said they're going to open up things like golf courses and parks, and municipalities have said other things too. The federal government has its approach. Are you concerned about this patchwork approach to loosening restrictions? And are we going to see some new modeling data that was expected this week?
So let me start, and then I'll ask Dr. Tam to offer her thoughts too. As we've said, there will be a conversation between the Prime Minister and the First Ministers that I'll participate in too this afternoon. And one of the chief subjects to be discussed will be an approach to restarting the Canadian economy. Our view is that as a country, we should have some shared principles and some shared standards that help guide us all in knowing when and how to approach the restart of the economy. At the same time, we also absolutely understand that we are a huge and diverse country, and a huge and diverse country which has had and continues to have very different experiences of this global pandemic. And so that means that inevitably and quite rightly, we will be seeing a different timing, a different pace of the restart across the country, simply because the experience of the pandemic has been and continues to be different across the country. We hope, and I have a lot of confidence, that in moving into this next stage, and I don't think we're there yet, in moving into this next stage, we will continue to have a really collaborative approach between the federal government and the provinces and territories, and among the provinces and territories, and that all of us will continue to be guided by the thing that matters most to everyone, which is the health and safety of Canadians. Dr. Tam?
Yeah, so on the public health side, we collaborate on an ongoing basis with all chief medical officers of health. And what we are trying to do is establish the fundamental principles and criteria for each of the provinces and territories to calibrate the sort of path to the new normal. I think everyone agrees that we have to be extremely cautious, because we cannot afford to have another upswing in a bigger wave. So that's the concern. So the type of approach that we think every jurisdiction would follow is absolutely make sure transmission has come down all the way to the bottom of that curve, and some of the criteria that goes with it. That their health system capacities are in place and have the ability to surge should we see another cluster or an outbreak, that their outbreak risks are minimized in special settings like those of long-term care facilities and other maybe congregate housing areas like persons experiencing homelessness, for example, and that they have advised their workplaces in terms of the preventive measures that they can take so that they can reopen safely. As well, I think all of us recognize that the importation risk is one thing that we will try and prevent, and it's not until the domestic transmissions have all been under control that we can even begin to look at some of those. So shoring up the importation approaches, and also keep ensuring that our public is engaged. So those are the kind of areas that we are working through and agree on, essentially. But so then that allows, I think, each of the jurisdiction to assess their particular situation, and with all of us moving sort of cautiously through that path. So absolutely, I think in Canada is such a big country, you cannot sort of hold up certain areas of resuming certain activities, while at the same time, of course, another jurisdiction that is still trying to get certain outbreaks in control must continue to do that as well. But coordination and sharing information is actually very important so that people are aware of what's going on across Canada. Yes, we are ready to do that. It's just the timing for when we can sort of cue it in, as it were. Thank you.
Hello, Minister Freeland. A recent survey showed that half of rural Alberta doctors in 44 locations were planning on withdrawing their services from hospitals because of contract disputes with the Alberta government. Does this cause any concern to the federal government during a pandemic?
You know, I was very personally moved by the poem that Dr. Tam read to us this earlier today. I think probably a lot of people were. Medical professionals across Canada are truly heroes right now, and we need all of them. And I personally have tremendous faith and confidence that the medical professionals across the country are today honoring their most important obligation, which is to save Canadian lives across the country. I know that that is what they're doing. I am grateful to them. Of course, there are specific political issues across the country. But I think right now everyone's priority needs to be, and I think in reality it is, taking care of and protecting Canadians. And I can say, you know, my dad is getting ready to go out in the fields in rural Alberta. He's 75 years old. I'm a little bit worried about him. And I said, Dad, how do you feel? He said he feels personally great, and he has 100% confidence in the medical professionals in Northern Alberta.
Thank you. Do we have time for another one? Or
Maybe one last. It's 12:56, so.
Okay, well, do you have any advice on how to resolve this situation from the federal level?
I think it's important for all of us today to bear two things in mind. The first is our house is on fire, and all of us need to focus first and foremost on that. And I really believe the overwhelming majority of Canadians are doing that. And then secondly, I just
Thank you. Merci. Ceci met fin à la conférence de presse pour aujourd'hui.
Hello again, I'm Marc-André Cossette, and you're watching CPAC's